The arrival of humanity. The council chamber of the Galactic Conclave was unlike any place Kalen Rourke had ever seen. It hovered in orbit around a dead star, a massive construct of crystalline spires that reflected the dim light of the surrounding nebulae. The chamber itself was a cathedral of power, filled with energy that pulsed in colors beyond human perception. It was not merely a building, it was a testament to millennia of galactic politics, of empires rising and falling, of civilizations that had survived the void through sheer intellect and ruthlessness. Today, however, the chamber seemed to lean toward something new. A species previously unknown to the Conclave had arrived. Humanity. High Envoy Terwenin, the representative of the Azran Empire, stood at the center. 6 eyes glimmering like molten amber, exoskeletal armor reflecting the light in jagged patterns, he was every bit the image of power the humans had expected. His voice, more vibration than sound, echoed through the chamber, settling into the minds of all present. Delegates of the Azran Empire, delegates of the Conclave, and you, the humans, speak now or know that silence is consent to observation, not participation. Kalen stepped forward, his long coat brushing the polished floor. He was tall but not intimidating in size. It was his presence, calm and unyielding, that drew the attention of every being in the chamber. Behind him walked his delegation, Dr. Leora Vance, her white lab coat gleaming and eyes wide with curiosity, scanning the alien forms as though cataloging every detail. Commander Jax Harrow, whose broad shoulders and square jaw carried the confidence of one who had fought in orbital battles and survived. And Tessai Marin, whose delicate fingers traced the edges of a small data pad, ready to decode any alien dialect in real time. The council members, a kaleidoscope of life forms from across the galaxy, watched the humans with skepticism. Some had tendrils that twitched nervously, others radiated heat that made the air shimmer. A few emitted low-frequency hums that resonated like the echoes of distant drums. Every eye, sensory organ, and psychic receptor was on the humans. Kalen raised his hand slightly, signaling respect without submission. "We are humans of the planet Solara Prime," he said, voice steady, carrying across the chamber without effort. "We come to this council not as supplicants, but as equals." A ripple of disbelief swept through the assembly. The notion of a newly arrived species declaring equality with ancient empires was unprecedented. Whispers spread like static electricity. Tichorwanen's eyes narrowed. "Equals?" His tone was sharp, vibratory and unspoken challenge. "Yes," Kalen replied. "Equals. We have endured the collapse of civilizations, the predation of galactic leviathans, and the entropy of systems older than most of you. We have not only survived, we have adapted, innovated, and thrived." Some council members recoiled. Others tilted their heads, intrigued. Sherwanen's 6 eyes swept the humans, each glance probing for weakness. "And yet," he said, "you stand here, untested, claiming parity with civilizations far older than yours. Why should the Conclave permit you any voice?" Kalen smiled faintly, as though this was the question he had been waiting for. "Because we speak not for power nor for conquest. We speak for principle. We speak for the belief that intelligence, courage, and moral conviction, regardless of origin, deserve recognition. We speak for the future that belongs to those who can act with wisdom, not those who merely demand obedience." The chamber fell silent. Even the ambient hum of energy seemed to pause, as though the structure itself waited for the response. Some members murmured among themselves, tentatively impressed. Others hissed in disbelief. Tichorwanen stepped forward, every movement deliberate, resonating with authority. "The council has rules. New voices are tested. Fail and you are exiled from observation and negotiation alike. Do you accept this?" Kalen inclined his head. "We accept. Humanity has never shied away from tests of intellect or courage. We will speak, we will listen, and when we act, it will be with conviction that the galaxy cannot ignore." A shiver ran through the chamber as if every crystal, every luminescent script, sensed the weight of his words. The humans were not bluffing. They were not here to beg or to blend in. They were here to leave their mark. Leora stepped forward next, her voice calm yet precise. "We understand that many of you have histories spanning eons. We do not seek to erase those histories. We seek only to contribute, to offer solutions born from diverse experiences, from our own trials and errors, from the very survival instincts that define our species." Commander Harrow's hand brushed against the edge of his jacket, fingers brushing against a concealed data module. His presence radiated authority, a reminder that humanity was not just speaking, they were capable of action, of enforcing their words if necessary. And then Tessai, the linguist, extended a device that shimmered with adaptive translation fields. We come in peace. But make no mistake, we understand strategy, negotiation, and influence. We will engage as equals. For the first time, Terwenen did not speak. Instead, he gestured to the chamber itself. The walls shimmered, sending ripples of light across every observer. It was the council's way of measuring intent, of weighing truth against pretense. Every human was exposed, every thought sensed. The chamber waited. Kalen took a deep breath and straightened. The Empire spoke first. Let it be known, humanity speaks last. It was not arrogance. It was an observation, a declaration, and a promise. The conclave had never encountered a species like this, bold, resilient, and unafraid. And in the vast silence that followed, one truth became clear. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The Council Trials. The chamber hummed with silent anticipation as the conclave's energy walls pulsed, acknowledging Kalen Rourke's declaration. Humanity's audacity had turned heads and raised questions, but admiration and doubt were intertwined. The Council did not give power lightly, and speaking last, while bold, came with the expectation of proving worth. High Envoy Terenen's 6 eyes narrowed, a swirl of molten amber scanning the humans like a predator evaluating prey. Your words are audacious. But words alone are meaningless in the conclave. To speak last, to influence, to be heard, you must first demonstrate that your species can endure the trials we set. Kalen nodded calmly. We expected no less. Terenen raised one segmented hand, and the chamber's floor rippled like liquid glass. Sections of the crystalline floor rearranged themselves into 3 distinct zones. One glowed with blinding light, another shimmered in deep violet, and the last pulsed like a heartbeat, shifting unpredictably. The council murmured collectively, communicating thoughts that resonated through the humans' minds. These were trials unlike anything Kalen had anticipated. Mental acuity, moral decision-making, and survival instinct, all rolled into one. The trial of insight, Terwenen intoned, gesturing toward the glowing zone. You will decipher knowledge beyond your natural understanding. Your species has claimed ingenuity, prove it. Leora stepped forward, her eyes scanning the glowing scripts that floated in midair. Symbols twisted and reformed, impossible geometries that defied human logic. Her mind raced, correlating patterns with neural simulations stored in her portable module. These are fractal codices, she muttered under her breath, linked across multiple dimensions of meaning. Kalen watched her work, noting every precise motion. Humans excelled at making connections, finding patterns others missed, and thriving under pressure. Leora's fingers danced over a holographic interface, linking symbols with a speed and creativity that drew silent gasps from the council. After several tense moments, the codices rearranged into a coherent map, a representation of interstellar trade routes previously unknown to the conclave. The chamber buzzed. Even Tichoenen's eyes widened slightly. Your species adapts, he acknowledged. Before they could savor their small victory, the floor shifted again. The second zone, deep violet, rose and rotated. The trial of conscience, Tichoenen continued, his voice low and resonant. You will confront moral dilemmas without guidance. Your choices will be observed, judged, and recorded. Kalen exchanged a brief glance with Jax Harrow. The warrior's jaw tightened. They had trained for diplomacy, negotiation, and conflict, but moral trials on an alien scale were unprecedented. We proceed, Kalen said. The violet floor projected holographic scenarios around each human. Leora saw a starving population of alien refugees, forced to choose between a limited supply of life-sustaining energy or saving their homeworld's environmental integrity. Tessai observed a diplomatic impasse where one species' survival meant another's destruction. Jax faced a simulation of a military standoff where hesitation could cost millions of lives. They worked as a team, not just relying on instinct but on discussion, compromise, and the human ability to balance logic with empathy. Leora proposed solutions that minimized harm while maximizing survival. Tessai mediated between competing ethical frameworks, translating them into decisions that the holographic council could accept. Jax's experience ensured that risks were calculated, lives protected, and decisive action remained possible. After what felt like hours compressed into minutes, the violet glow dimmed. Urenen's voice echoed, tinged with begrudging respect. You have shown wisdom. Yet the final trial remains. The heartbeat zone shivered beneath their feet, unpredictable and unstable. The trial of endurance, Tirwinen said. You will survive the impossible. Endure physical, mental, and environmental extremes. Your species' survival instinct will be tested. Fail, and you are removed from the council permanently. Without hesitation, Kalen stepped into the zone first, followed by his team. Gravity fluctuated violently, temperatures swung from freezing to searing, and alien predators, projected by the council, lunged without warning. Yet humanity adapted. They used improvisation, tools at hand, and instinctual ingenuity. Jax coordinated defensive maneuvers. Leora manipulated environmental controls. Tessai decoded the energy patterns to predict shifts in terrain. Kalen observed, intervened where necessary, and maintained cohesion. Hours, perhaps days, passed, though time in the chamber was elastic. Other council members watched, some with disbelief, others in awe, as humans defied every expectation. They did not merely survive, they thrived. They adapted, improvised, and cooperated in ways no other species had ever done under council scrutiny. Finally, the pulse of the chamber slowed. The floor stabilized. The walls glowed with the energy of recognition. High Envoy Tehuranen's voice, low and almost reverent, filled the chamber. Humans, your species has endured the unendurable, solved the unsolvable, and acted with wisdom where others would falter. You have earned the right to speak. Not as supplicants. Not as subjects. But as equals. Kalen straightened, feeling the weight of the moment. They had faced the council's trials and emerged, not just intact, but proven. He looked at Leora, Jax, and Tessai. Each of them had contributed something uniquely human: curiosity, courage, and intellect. The council members leaned in literally and figuratively, awaiting humanity's voice. Kalen knew this moment would be remembered across the galaxy, repeated in whispers and debates for decades, perhaps centuries. The Empire had spoken first, with power and authority. Humanity had endured, thought, and survived, and now, it would speak last. Kalen raised his hand. The trials are over. The conclave has judged. And we will speak. The chamber waited, hanging on that promise. Humanity speaks last. The council chamber held its collective breath. Every being, every consciousness, every resonating energy field was attuned to the humans now. They had endured trials that would have broken most species. They had demonstrated intellect, morality, and resilience beyond expectation. And now, Kalen Rourke stepped forward, not to plead, not to impress, but to declare. He raised both hands slightly, a gesture of calm authority, and let his voice carry through the chamber, amplified by the resonance of the crystalline walls. Delegates of the conclave, you have tested us in ways few could have imagined. You have pushed our minds, our morals, and our very bodies. And we have endured. Not to dominate, not to intimidate, but to demonstrate what humanity has always understood. Survival is not enough. Survival without principle, without cooperation, without courage, is meaningless. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some beings had no vocal cords, yet their thoughts vibrated in disbelief. Others leaned forward, literally sensing that a new kind of power was speaking. A power not based on weapons or longevity but on something more subtle, more dangerous in its own right. Principled intelligence combined with adaptability. Kalen continued. You, the conclave, speak of orders, hierarchies, and control. We recognize the authority you have built over eons. But authority without accountability leads only to stagnation. Civilizations that cannot adapt crumble. Leaders who cannot listen fail. The galaxy does not belong to those who dominate, it belongs to those who understand, innovate, and inspire. High Envoy Tehuranen's 6 eyes glimmered with a mixture of irritation and curiosity. For the first time, Kalen noticed the slightest shift in the Azran's posture, a subtle acknowledgement that humans were not merely speaking, they were asserting presence. Tessai Marin stepped forward, her voice soft but deliberate, translating human ideas into tones and thought patterns intelligible to the council's diverse minds. Our species has survived when the odds were impossible. We have preserved knowledge from worlds swallowed by entropy. We have built alliances where others saw only enemies. We understand that strength is not only in the body but in reasoning, empathy, and the courage to act for the greater good, even when no one is watching. The chamber's energy shifted. Some council members visibly recoiled, defensive in the presence of such conviction. Others leaned closer, sensing the truth in Tessai's words. Jax Harrow, veteran of orbital combat, added his voice. We do not come to erase history. We do not seek dominion over others. But we will not be ignored. Humanity will speak in matters of survival, diplomacy, and strategy, not as pawns, not as supplicants, but as equals. To disregard our perspective is to ignore the lessons of a species that has endured more than most of you can imagine. Kalen paused, scanning the chamber. The silence was thick, heavy, but attentive. This was the moment he had trained for. The moment when speaking last was no longer about timing, it was about impact. Let it be known, Kalen said, his voice rising with quiet authority, the Empire spoke first with power. Humanity speaks last with experience, principle, and determination. And when we speak, the galaxy listens. Not because we demand it, but because we prove that our perspective is indispensable to its survival. High Envoy Tichoranen's 6 eyes narrowed. His tone, when he finally spoke, carried the weight of judgment and centuries of dominance. Your words are audacious. Your reasoning is unconventional. Yet the trials were passed. You endure, you adapt, and you act with principles unlike any species I have witnessed. Perhaps there is merit to allowing your voice to be heard. A ripple of acknowledgement passed through the other delegates. Some were shocked. Others were reluctant but intrigued. And a few, rare in the galaxy, leaned forward fully, their thoughts resonating in a silent chorus. Perhaps this human species was different. Perhaps they were to be taken seriously. Kalen did not press the advantage with arrogance. He let the council settle, letting the weight of their trials, their endurance, and their words speak for themselves. But even in his measured restraint, there was a quiet, unmistakable force. Humanity would not be dismissed, nor would it be underestimated. Dr. Leora Vance stepped closer, her eyes scanning the council members with curiosity. We offer collaboration, she said, softer than Kalen but no less firm. We offer strategies and knowledge drawn from worlds beyond your perception, lessons learned from survival and innovation. We ask only that we be heard, that our input be considered, and that the decisions shaping the future of the galaxy include perspectives forged in struggle, empathy, and resilience. Tichoranen's exoskeletal frame stiffened. He had never encountered a species so young yet so bold, so principled yet so practical. You claim partnership, he said, not dominance. Yes, Kalen replied. Partnership, collaboration, and responsibility. Humanity speaks last not to overshadow, but to ensure that what is spoken first is wise, and that what follows is just. The chamber hummed with quiet acknowledgement. In that instant, a subtle shift occurred across the conclave. The humans had not only survived, they had earned attention, respect, and most importantly, the right to influence. And though no one in the chamber said it aloud, all knew it. The galaxy would never view humanity the same way again. Kalen lowered his hands. We have spoken, he said. The trials are complete. The council may judge our words, but understand this. We will endure, adapt, and persist. Humanity speaks last, yes, but what we speak carries the weight of survival, principle, and hope. And that is a voice that cannot be silenced. The chamber remained still for a long moment as if absorbing the impact. Then, one by one, beings who had doubted began to murmur, communicate, and consider. Not all agreed, not all welcomed humanity. But one undeniable truth had spread. Humans were here to stay, and their voice would shape the future of the conclave. And in that silence, Kalen allowed himself the faintest smile. They had survived the trials. They had endured judgment. They had spoken last. And now the galaxy would listen. The first challenge of the conclave. The chamber's resonance had barely faded when murmurs spread among the delegates. Humanity had spoken last, and the weight of their words lingered like an unseen force. Some members shifted uneasily, a few leaned forward, curious and intrigued. But not all were pleased. In the shadows of authority, envy and fear can flourish faster than admiration, and the humans had become the center of both. High Envoy Tichoranen observed Kalen and his delegation with a mixture of respect and wariness. You speak with boldness, humans, he said, his 6 eyes narrowing. But words are not the measure of influence. The conclave operates on action. A voice untested in consequence is as fragile as crystal. You will face the first challenge, one that will determine whether your voice carries weight beyond rhetoric. Before Kalen could respond, the chamber's walls shivered. The energy of the conclave pulsed, drawing attention to a vast holographic projection in the center of the floor. It depicted a star system in turmoil, planets fractured, populations at risk, and unstable energy fields threatening to collapse the local Wormgate network. This system, Tichoranen explained, has been unstable for centuries. Your task is simple in theory: stabilize it, prevent catastrophic loss, and propose solutions for its governance. You have limited resources, limited time, and no prior knowledge of local species or politics. Failure is permanent. The humans exchanged glances. The challenge was unprecedented, but it was exactly the kind of test they thrived on. Kalen stepped forward. We understand. We will act. Leora Vance immediately engaged, scanning the holographic system. There are 5 inhabited planets, she said. 2 are in civil conflict, 1 is technologically advanced but unstable, and 2 are natural resource dependent with fragile ecosystems. The Wormgate network is failing because of energy fluctuations, possibly artificial in origin. Tessai Marin analyzed communications data from the holographic interface. Languages and protocols are incompatible. Negotiation will require patience, empathy, and ingenuity. And these energy fields, someone, or something, is deliberately destabilizing them. Jax Harrow frowned. Hostile forces or rogue factions. Either way, we need a plan that balances diplomacy and tactical readiness. Kalen nodded. Then we divide the responsibilities. Leora, you manage technical stabilization. Tessai, diplomacy and negotiation. Jax, security and logistics. I will oversee coordination and strategy. The humans moved with uncanny synchronization, each anticipating the other's needs. Leora's hands flew over alien interfaces, rerouting energy flows and stabilizing Wormgate nodes with improvised solutions. Tessai deciphered alien languages, calming panicked populations and mediating conflicts with subtle logic that respected local cultures while guiding them toward cooperation. Jax deployed defensive drones and managed transport networks, ensuring no one would exploit the chaos to sabotage their efforts. Hours passed, or perhaps it was days. Time in the holographic simulation was distorted. Delegates watched in stunned silence as humans accomplished what no other species had attempted. They stabilized the system's energy fields, prevented planetary collapse, and orchestrated a temporary alliance between warring factions. Each action reflected not only intelligence, but an instinctive understanding of human adaptability. High Envoy Tichoanen's 6 eyes narrowed in concentration. You have achieved what was expected, and more. But stability is temporary. Governance requires vision, ethics, and sustainability. How do you propose this system be managed long-term? Kalen stepped forward, projecting confidence without arrogance. We propose a council of representatives from each planet, guided by principles of transparency, shared responsibility, and adaptive decision-making. Decisions should be based on data, local context, and ethical frameworks designed to prevent domination by any single faction. We also recommend technical safeguards, energy distribution networks that are self-regulating and adaptable to fluctuations, monitored collaboratively by all parties. The holographic system shifted to reflect their proposals, showing planets in stable orbits, wormgates functioning normally, and populations cooperating for mutual survival. Some council members leaned closer, intrigued. Others remained skeptical, reluctant to admit admiration. Then came the true test. From the projection, a rogue faction activated a hidden device, sending a shockwave that threatened to collapse the system. The humans reacted instantly. Leora rerouted power to counteract the energy spike. Jax coordinated planetary defenses, diverting resources to prevent mass casualties. Tessai negotiated with the faction remotely, using logic and empathy to halt their aggression without violence. Kalen made the final decision, a subtle combination of technical intervention, diplomacy, and strategic risk. The shockwave dissipated. The system stabilized. Humanity had turned potential disaster into a demonstration of ingenuity and moral calculation under pressure. High Envoy Teoanen's voice reverberated through the chamber, tinged with disbelief and respect. Humans, you have not only stabilized the system but done so in a way that demonstrates foresight, adaptability, and ethical consideration. It is remarkable. Kalen inclined his head. We did what was necessary. The survival of the system, and the well-being of its inhabitants, is paramount. Efficiency without conscience is meaningless. A murmur of approval spread across the council. Even species long opposed to one another paused to acknowledge the human's achievement. The first challenge had not only been passed, it had been redefined by human ingenuity. Tessai whispered to Kalen, a faint smile on her face. They're starting to listen, truly listen. Kalen nodded. And we have more to say. Speaking last gives us the advantage, but acting first, wisely, ensures that when we do speak, no one can ignore us. The chamber pulsed with energy as if acknowledging the subtle shift in power. Humanity had survived the conclave's first test, and in doing so, they had begun to carve a permanent place for themselves in the galaxy. Not through fear. Not through dominance. but through intellect, principle, and adaptability. The humans stood together, calm and composed, as the council began to murmur once more. The whispers carried a new respect. The first challenge had ended, but the real journey for humanity had only just begun. And somewhere deep in the energy of the chamber, a silent truth crystallized. The species that spoke last had proven it could act first when it mattered most. The shadow among the council. The conclave had seen many things over millennia: wars that reshaped star systems, empires that rose and fell like tides, and species that vanished into obscurity. Yet none of them had ever witnessed a species arrive, endure trials, and act with such precision, wisdom, and moral clarity as humanity. That success, however, came with consequences. Respect had been earned, yes, but so had envy, suspicion, and fear. Somewhere in the shadows of the council chamber, a subtle yet potent resistance began to form. High Envoy Renan remained outwardly neutral, though his 6 eyes flickered with a strange mix of admiration and caution. "Humans," he said, his voice echoing across the chamber, "you have acted with efficiency and principle. But the galaxy is not ruled by principle alone. There are forces in this council that resist change, that see new power as a threat. You will soon learn that influence attracts scrutiny and danger." Kalen exchanged a glance with his team. Tessai Marin's fingers traced the edge of her datapad nervously. "You feel it too," she said quietly. "The council isn't just observing, they're testing us in ways we can't anticipate." "Then we adapt," Kalen replied. "We always adapt." It began subtly. Representatives from older, more entrenched empires started questioning every human recommendation. Meetings that had previously been procedural now carried sharp undertones of accusation. Some suggested the human stabilization of the first test system had been accidental. Others implied hidden motives, hinting that humans might secretly seek control rather than collaboration. Kalen remained calm, listening, observing, recording. Humanity's greatest advantage was its ability to remain composed under scrutiny, to weigh threats without responding with hostility. The first direct challenge came from Ambassador Zyron of the Veil Collective, a species of semi-ethereal beings who existed partially out of phase with conventional space. Zyron's voice resonated in the minds of all present, a dissonant chord that made even seasoned delegates uneasy. "Humans," Zyron said, its form flickering like static electricity, "your triumph in the first challenge is admirable, but it raises questions. How can a species so young, so untested, presume to guide decisions in the conclave? What prevents you from acting as a hidden empire, imposing your will under the guise of principle?" A ripple of tension passed through the chamber. Kalen stepped forward, his expression calm, unshaken. "Ambassador Zyron," he said, "your concerns are valid. Authority without accountability is dangerous. That is precisely why we propose transparency in all our actions. We do not act in secrecy. We do not demand obedience. We act openly for the benefit of all, with the understanding that every decision is subject to review, debate, and consequence." Zyron's form flickered more aggressively. "Your ideals are noble. Perhaps too noble. We have seen species that claim principle only to hide ambition. How do we know you will not follow the same path?" Tessai Marin interjected, her voice firm yet diplomatic. "You know us by our actions. We have stabilized a system under impossible conditions. We have negotiated peace between factions centuries at war. We have done so without coercion or hidden motives. If you question our intentions, consider our results." Some delegates murmured in approval. Others, particularly those allied with Zyron, remained unconvinced. A subtle current of tension ran through the chamber, a reminder that humanity had entered not only a space of diplomacy but of political intrigue. Jax Harrow's voice broke the rising tension, calm but forceful. "We do not deny scrutiny. We welcome it. Question our methods. Test our decisions. But understand this: humanity will not be intimidated by whispers or insinuations. We act with logic, courage, and principle, and those qualities are our shield." High Envoy Teruenen watched silently, his expression unreadable. Then, almost imperceptibly, he gestured toward a section of the chamber that shimmered with hidden energy. The walls rippled, revealing a concealed gallery where council members who opposed humanity had gathered. They were plotting, exchanging telepathic messages, and manipulating vote weights to undermine human influence before it could solidify. Kalen noticed the flicker of energy, subtle but consistent. He leaned toward Tessai. "The opposition isn't just questioning us. They're organizing against us." Tessai's eyes widened slightly. "Do you think they'd attempt sabotage?" Kalen's jaw tightened. "Possibly. But if they act, they'll learn quickly that humans do not falter in the face of shadows. We respond and we adapt. That is how we survive, and that is how we influence. The following weeks became a test not of strength but of strategy. The humans' proposals were dissected, twisted, and challenged at every turn. They faced misinformation campaigns, political maneuvering, and even attempts to discredit their achievements in the first challenge. Yet at every point, Kalen and his team responded with calm reasoning, undeniable evidence, and ingenuity. Leora Vance presented detailed technical analyses of the systems they had stabilized, highlighting errors and inconsistencies in the opposition's claims. Tessai translated subtle cultural nuances of alien factions to clarify misunderstandings. Jax Harrow anticipated tactical disruptions, neutralizing potential threats with precision. Slowly the tide began to turn. Delegates who had initially doubted humanity began to recognize a pattern. Every accusation, every challenge, was met not with aggression, but with competence, transparency, and adaptability. Every attempt to manipulate the situation failed, not through brute force, but through the unique human combination of intellect, resilience, and moral clarity. High Envoy Tihn's 6 eyes lingered on Kalen. "Humans," he said almost to himself, "you navigate shadows as deftly as light. Perhaps, there is something in your species that even the Conclave has not accounted for." Kalen inclined his head slightly, acknowledging the recognition without arrogance. "The galaxy is full of shadows," he said softly. "But we are not here to chase darkness away with fear. We illuminate it with knowledge, principle, and action. That is how humans endure and thrive." In that moment, the chamber seemed to shift, almost imperceptibly, as if the conclave itself acknowledged a new reality. Humanity had survived the first political assault, and in doing so, had cemented its right to influence the galaxy, not by power but by principle. And somewhere deep in the shadows, those who had plotted against the humans realized that subtlety alone would not be enough. Humanity was no longer a species to be dismissed. Humanity was now a force to be reckoned with. The siege of influence. The conclave's chambers, once a place of structured deliberation, had become a battlefield of subtle war. Shadows whispered through the crystalline walls. Delegates who had previously observed humanity with curiosity now plotted against them, determined to test the limits of this new species' influence. Kalen Rourke felt the weight of the council's scrutiny as if it pressed against his chest, yet he remained calm. Humans thrived in pressure. They thrived in situations where others faltered. High Envoy Tihn's 6 eyes scanned the chamber. "The opposition has coordinated," he warned Kalen privately, his voice low enough that only the human delegation could hear. "Votes are being manipulated. Factions are spreading misinformation. The next session will be decisive. Your species must prove that influence can survive scrutiny and subterfuge." Kalen nodded. "We expected nothing less. Humans do not yield to fear or deception. We adapt and we endure." The next council session began with unprecedented tension. The holographic projection of votes hovered above the chamber floor, a chaotic swirl of numbers and symbols representing the delicate balance of power among thousands of delegates. Ambassador Zyron of the Veil Collective initiated the first move, presenting a motion that called into question humanity's right to participate in decision-making, citing potential hidden ambitions and unquantified risks. Leora Vance stepped forward, her voice calm and precise. "The first challenge and our subsequent actions demonstrate our transparency and principles. Every decision, every recommendation has been documented and verified independently. Claims of hidden motives are not only unfounded, they are inconsistent with the data." The chamber hummed with whispers. Data alone would not sway everyone. Influence required perception, diplomacy, and the ability to anticipate unseen consequences. Tessai Marin, scanning the energy patterns and telepathic currents in the room, noticed subtle attempts at vote manipulation. Certain factions were communicating signals meant to suppress human influence, while others attempted to sow confusion about technical proposals. She leaned toward Kalen. "They're trying to disorient us, to fracture our credibility before the council even votes." Kalen's eyes narrowed. "Then we show them coherence and foresight. They underestimate the power of collaboration." Jax Harrow moved to secure the human team's communication channels and projected their data transparently across the chamber. Holographic displays illustrated not only their proposals but also the potential risks, mitigation strategies, and long-term benefits. The humans were not just defending themselves, they were teaching the council how to think strategically. High Envoy Renan observed silently, a flicker of admiration in his usually impassive expression. Humanity's approach was unique. Rather than reacting defensively, they leveraged transparency, collaboration, and logic to turn an attack into a demonstration of value. Then came the subtle coup. A coordinated vote from three powerful factions attempted to delay the human proposals indefinitely. The motion required a 2/3 majority, and at first the numbers seemed against them. Kalen stood, his voice steady, calm, and resonant across the chamber. Delegates, influence is not merely about numbers. It is about integrity, principle, and the ability to act responsibly. The human delegation has demonstrated these qualities repeatedly. To deny our proposals now would not be merely procedural, it would be a dismissal of evidence, reason, and the survival principles that guide the galaxy. The chamber paused, tension rising to a palpable hum. Then Tessai translated the underlying logic into visual patterns that appealed to the council members' diverse modes of thought. Leora cross-referenced technical projections to show how delays could destabilize systems beyond the trial zone. Jax emphasized security concerns and potential ripple effects of inaction. Kalen watched as the tide began to shift. Influence, he knew, was not about overpowering opposition. It was about creating alignment through insight, evidence, and human ingenuity. Slowly the vote shifted. Some delegates who had initially opposed the humans reconsidered, swayed not by charisma but by undeniable logic and strategy. Ambassador Zyron's tendrils of influence faltered. The Veil Collective attempted to interject, but Kalen anticipated the challenge, presenting contingency analyses before they could speak, demonstrating foresight that neutralized every potential argument. High Envoy Tyronin finally spoke, his voice a low vibration that carried weight throughout the chamber. Humans, you have not merely survived scrutiny, you have turned it into a demonstration of competence and foresight. The Council sees that influence is earned through action, transparency, and principle, not through intimidation or age. The final vote passed overwhelmingly in favor of humanity's proposals. The chamber's energy pulsed in acknowledgement, a subtle but profound validation. Humanity had not only survived a coordinated attempt to undermine their influence, they had redefined what it meant to be a voice in the conclave. Kalen allowed himself the faintest smile. They had faced deception, manipulation, and the shadows of envy, and emerged not just intact but stronger. Leora, Tessai, and Jax shared the quiet satisfaction of a mission accomplished. The humans had proven a simple yet profound truth. Principle, intelligence, and adaptability could overcome even the most insidious challenges. As the session concluded, Kalen addressed the chamber one final time. The galaxy is full of shadows and influence will always be contested. But humanity will speak last, not because we seek power but because we act with knowledge, courage, and principle. Let this be a reminder to all. To dismiss a species based on age or familiarity is to ignore the capacity for endurance, insight, and moral courage that defines true strength. The chamber remained silent for a long moment, then erupted in murmurs of acknowledgement, cautious respect, and quiet admiration. The first challenge of influence had ended. Humanity had not merely survived, it had demonstrated the extraordinary combination of intellect, morality, and adaptability that set them apart from every species in the conclave. High Envoy Tyronin watched Kalen carefully, a rare flicker of emotion crossing his face. Perhaps the humans are more than a voice, he muttered. Perhaps they are a force. Kalen met his gaze, calm but resolute. We are not here to dominate, Tyronin. We are here to endure, adapt, and ensure the galaxy survives wisely. That is all humanity ever asks. And somewhere, deep in the crystalline heart of the conclave, the shadow of doubt that had threatened humanity began to fade. The siege of influence was over, but the human story and their rise in the galaxy was only beginning. The last word of humanity. The council chamber of the conclave was alive with tension, but not the same kind as when humans first entered. The air shimmered with anticipation, energy waves of curiosity and skepticism, but also respect. Humanity had endured trials, faced deception, and outmaneuvered political shadows. Now the moment had arrived when they would speak last, not in defense, not in challenge, but in declaration. Kalen Rourke stepped forward, flanked by his team, Leora Vance, Tessai Marin, and Jax Harrow. Their presence alone commanded attention. Not through size, not through weapons, but through the quiet authority of a species that had survived, adapted, and triumphed under scrutiny unlike any other. Delegates of the conclave, Kalen began, his voice calm yet resonant, carrying through the chamber and into the minds of every species present. We have spoken, we have acted, and we have endured. We have faced trials designed to test intellect, conscience, and survival, and we have met them. Not through domination, not through intimidation, but through the principles that define humanity: ingenuity, cooperation, and courage. The chamber's luminescent walls pulsed softly in response, a subtle acknowledgement of both truth and performance. Every delegate knew that this was no ordinary speech. This was a species demonstrating not only competence but moral and strategic authority. Kalen paused, letting his words settle. We have shown that a species can speak last, and in that silence, learn. Learn the strategies of others, understand their motives, and act with clarity and purpose when the moment comes. Speaking last is not merely a position. It is a responsibility. The responsibility to ensure that decisions made for the galaxy are informed, just, and enduring. Leora stepped forward next, her gaze sweeping across the chamber. We are humans of Solara Prime. We are young in galactic terms, but we carry the lessons of survival written across our species' history. We do not claim to know everything nor to impose our will. But we have shown that intelligence without principle, power without wisdom, is meaningless. Decisions made without foresight invite catastrophe. Tessai Marin added, her voice clear and precise. The galaxy is vast, full of cultures, species, and ideologies. Understanding requires patience. Influence requires integrity. Humanity speaks last because we choose to observe, to comprehend, and then to act, not rashly but decisively. Let that be our legacy, that reason, courage, and ethics are not weaknesses, they are the foundations of true strength. Jax Harrow, veteran of countless human conflicts, spoke last of the team. We have survived adversity not because we are the strongest, but because we act together, trust one another, and adapt faster than any challenge can overwhelm us. We are humans. We endure. We adapt. We prevail. And in this chamber we remind every species, survival is not just a measure of power, it is a measure of principle, ingenuity, and courage under fire. The chamber went silent. Not a whisper, not a murmur, but a silence of profound attention. Even the oldest, most entrenched delegates, the ones who had plotted to undermine humanity, found themselves unable to dismiss the force of these words. Influence had been won not through coercion but through clarity, competence, and the undeniable demonstration of HFY traits. High Envoy Teruanin, the Azran representative, spoke last, his 6 eyes fixed on Kalen. Humans, you have surpassed expectations. You speak last, yes, but your words carry weight beyond your years. Not because of arrogance but because of wisdom and action. The conclave will take note. You are formidable in ways that go beyond strength or longevity. Kalen nodded, acknowledging the respect. We do not seek dominance, Teacher Wen. We seek survival, collaboration, and a galaxy governed by understanding and foresight. Let all species here recognize this. A voice spoken last, tempered by trials, is a voice that resonates across generations. The council murmured in agreement. Delegates who had opposed the humans found themselves re-evaluating positions, reconsidering alliances, and acknowledging that the presence of humanity was no longer a novelty, it was a force to be respected and engaged. Kalen took a final step forward. Let it be recorded in the annals of the conclave that the Empire spoke first, and humanity spoke last. And when humanity speaks, it is not for conquest or glory, but for principle, for survival, and for the hope that the galaxy may endure wisely. That is our promise. That is our declaration. And that is the power of speaking last. For a long moment, silence reigned, then the chamber shifted, subtle vibrations running through the walls and floors, signaling acknowledgement. The conclave's elders, council members, and observers alike recognized a fundamental truth. Humanity had arrived not as a species to follow, but as a species that would endure, adapt, and lead through example. High Envoy Tehuanen's eyes softened, a rare expression in a species that measured everything in logic and outcome. Perhaps the galaxy has underestimated the human capacity. That mistake will not be repeated. Kalen allowed himself a faint smile. Humanity had faced tests of intellect, morality, and political maneuvering. They had survived deception, opposition, and the shadows of envy. And now they had done something far greater. They had cemented their legacy. The chamber's light pulsed in harmony with the human's presence, almost as if the conclave itself recognized that a new chapter had begun. A chapter defined not by force or fear, but by the enduring qualities that made humanity unique: ingenuity, courage, morality, and the ability to act decisively when it mattered most. And somewhere deep in the cosmic web of the conclave, a subtle truth crystallized for every species present. The Empire may have spoken first, but humanity would always speak last, and when it did, the galaxy listened. The humans turned as a team, their eyes scanning the chamber, unflinching, calm, and ready for whatever challenges the galaxy might throw at them next. The trials were over. Their place in the conclave was secured. Their voice had weight, their presence had authority, and their legacy was only beginning. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. Epilogue: Echoes of Humanity. The council chamber had quieted. Humanity's voice, measured and principled, had resonated through the chamber and beyond, echoing into every corner of the conclave. Delegates from thousands of worlds whispered among themselves, debating, reconsidering, recalibrating. The humans had not only survived trials and intrigue, they had fundamentally shifted the perception of what a species could achieve. Kalen Rourke stood in the central circle, gazing at the crystalline walls. They reflected the energy of the chamber like living mirrors, yet now that energy carried something new. A subtle respect, a recognition that humanity was no longer a fledgling species to be tested, but a presence to be considered seriously. Dr. Leora Vance adjusted the interface of her datapad, analyzing the aftermath of the first challenge and the siege of influence. The data streams indicate ripple effects, she said. Several factions have already restructured alliances. Some are openly seeking collaboration with humans. Others are quietly planning their next moves. Tessai Marin, ever attuned to subtle currents of thought in the chamber, added, "The shadows will linger, Kalen. Influence breeds attention, and attention attracts both allies and enemies. But humanity has set a precedent. We act with clarity, principle, and resilience. That will guide the path ahead." Jax Harrow, who had grown accustomed to the high-stakes tension of the conclave, allowed himself a rare grin. "It's almost peaceful for now. But we all know this isn't the end. Whoever thought humans couldn't survive in the galaxy clearly hasn't been paying attention." Kalen nodded. "We've done more than survive. We've demonstrated that endurance, intelligence, and morality are not weaknesses. They are our greatest strengths. That's the message the galaxy must remember." Outside the council chamber, the galaxy continued in its chaos and wonder. Systems on the brink of collapse stabilized thanks to human-guided interventions. Fleets that had been on the verge of conflict were now communicating through human-mediated protocols. Across dozens of worlds, leaders whispered of the audacity and competence of this young species from Solara Prime. Humanity's trials and actions had sparked what some called a new era of consideration, a recognition that even a species without ancient longevity could wield influence through intellect, cooperation, and principle. Yet Kalen knew the path ahead was not without danger. Rival empires, humbled or humiliated by humanity's rise, would not simply forget. Old alliances might fray, and new conflicts would inevitably emerge. But he also knew this: humanity's greatest advantage was not physical strength, nor advanced weaponry, nor sheer numbers. It was their ability to adapt, to learn, to act decisively while remaining principled. That was a quality the galaxy had rarely seen, and one that would shape history. Derwinin, the Azran envoy, approached quietly. His 6 eyes, normally sharp and calculating, now held something closer to recognition, or perhaps a rare form of respect. "Humans," he said, his voice low and resonant, "your species is unlike any we have encountered. I admit I did not expect you to endure with such consistency. Nor did I expect you to influence so effectively." Kalen inclined his head. "We do what we must. Not for glory, not for power, but to ensure that action and principle align. That is what makes us effective and enduring." Erwinin studied him for a long moment. "Perhaps there is more to your species than I, or the conclave, have understood. We will observe and learn." Kalen allowed a faint smile. Observation was natural. Learning from humanity would be the reward of those willing to engage honestly. Back in the chamber, the humans convened quietly among themselves. Tessai projected a map of conclave factions, color-coded by openness, hostility, and neutrality. "We need to track influence," she said. "Not to dominate but to anticipate. Some factions may attempt subtle retaliation for past defeats." Leora added, "Our stabilization strategies for interstellar systems can now be scaled. We've proven the method works. If we continue to apply it carefully, we can prevent disasters before they escalate." Jax grinned, flexing his hands. "And if diplomacy fails? We adapt. That's what we do best." Kalen looked at them, his gaze steady. "We've arrived, yes. But this is just the beginning. The galaxy is vast, full of complexity and full of challenges. We have earned respect, but respect is not permanence. Influence must be maintained, nurtured, and defended with wisdom. That is the lesson humanity brings, and it is a lesson the galaxy will never forget. As they turned toward the observation windows, the chamber revealed the swirling beauty of the galaxy beyond. Nebulae glowed with radiant colors, fleets drifted along cosmic currents, and distant stars pulsed like beacons of possibility. Humanity had arrived as an untested voice, endured trials that would have crushed older species, and spoken last in a chamber of the galaxy's greatest minds. Now they would act, think, and guide. Not as conquerors, not as tyrants, but as a species capable of shaping events through principle, ingenuity, and courage. And somewhere in the infinite vastness, a quiet truth settled across the galaxy. Humanity had arrived, and when humans spoke, the universe would listen, not because they demanded it, but because they had proven their worth, their wisdom, and their indomitable spirit. The council chamber, for all its ancient grandeur, seemed almost to breathe in acknowledgement. The humans had left a mark that would echo across star systems, civilizations, and eons. They had survived, they had adapted, and they had spoken last. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.